Okay, this game is another win by Anand in the Mexico City World Championship tournament. This time he was playing Alexander Morozevich. So Anand was white, he played e4. Now we have the Sicilian defence. Knight f3 is now played, d6. White is exchanging the pawns in the centre. So it's all standard stuff so far. Now f3, which is known as the English attack system, because it was used by a lot of English grandmasters in the last few years. Black now reacted with e5, which is quite a committal move. Notice that the d5 square is slightly weakened, and which this would be a very important factor later, the way Anand does his positional manoeuvring. Actually, with this knight later, we'll see, in quite spectacular fashion. So that knight will end up on d5, believe it or not. Bishop e6, bishop e3. So white's playing as though he's going to attack black now on the king side later and trying to discourage black from castling king side. Morozevich is not worried though. Knight b6, he doesn't mind this g5. The knight's going now to h5, so that's quite an annoyance for white. It's blockading the h-pawn though, so it's kind of slowing down white's attack. And it's very difficult for white to do anything about that knight. It will take quite a few moves to try and probe it. So anyway, Anand continues queen d2. He's actually more concerned at this stage with this d5 square. Rook c8, castle's queenside, bishop e7. He supports though this pawn on g5. But now he plays king b1. He's not concerned so much about carrying on the kingside attack. It's done its job. This g5 has done its job for dislodging this knight away from the d5 square. So now Anand, he's probing this other knight now, which is also defending that d5 square, by playing queen f2. So there's double pressure now on that knight. So it moves to c4 now, and Anand doesn't mind giving up his light squared bishop. So he takes on c4 and now plays knight d5, encouraging Morozevich to play bishop takes d5. So again, a lot of defenders of that d5 square have been removed now, and this knight can't get back to it easily. Morozevich lashes out now with f5, and after g takes, rook takes, Anand plays queen e2. So knight f4 is played now, which is seemingly a very good outpost, and white though, Anand gives up his dark squared bishop now, so he doesn't mind these exchanges. The d5 square is really under his control at the moment. He retreats his rook, and now knight c1, the start of a really magnificent manoeuvre now to get back to this d5 square, as we'll see, from very humble beginnings. Rook cf8, now he plays a3, and guess what? The a2 square is going to be used for that knight to hop to. Then b4, then later it can potentially go to d5. So after king h8, knight a2, queen h3 now, and he's got to be careful about f3, so he plays rook g3 to defend that, queen h5, queen g2. So there's a slight threat now on g7 to keep that busy. Rook h4. Now Anand consolidates his position further with this h3. So these pawns are all immune from that dark squared bishop. Queen h6. Now rook b3, provoking b5. So that's potentially loosening these pawns now. And after knight b4, the a6 pawn's under fire, and also the d5 square can be jumped into, finally. So after rook h5, Anand here could have played knight a6 potentially, but actually first plays queen f1, and after rook h4, back to g2. Maybe he's just gaining a bit of time on the clock, approaching the time control. But now he plays knight takes a6. After bishop h4, he moves to g4. White's position is quite safe and solid here, it seems. The dark squared bishop is not very good here. It's a kind of Sveshnikov Sicilian gone wrong. Queen e2. So Anand gives up that h-pawn, And potentially now black's got this dangerous passed h-pawn, which we'll see later is the source of much drama. Rook takes b5, bishop d8, rook b8. So there's an infiltration now on this queen side. Queen f6. Now the knight comes back to d5 now, so it's munched that pawn. It's coming back to the d5 square, and then it doesn't mind giving up this f3 pawn. There was too much pressure on it anyway. So he's got his great knight finally on d5. Queen a6. So he can now exert a lot more pressure on this bishop and generally on black's d6 pawn. But this h pawn is now becoming quite dangerous. So it moves with tempo and it moves again now. And then not too worried, he plays queen d6. And after bishop e7 we see queen takes e5. So black has sacrificed these two pawns to try and get this pawn becoming menacing, this h pawn. Queen c7, bishop f8. Black doesn't mind even about the queen exchange. Well, you can't really do much apart from that. There's a lot of pressure on black's position. Now rook g4. So this is an exciting incident now. After check, rook h1. Anand plays e5. So his e pawn's quite dangerous. But how dangerous is black's h pawn? After bishop c5, he continues with e6. Black plays king h6, and now he must have calculated this quite thoroughly. He plays rook c4, knowing that black will sacrifice the bishop and reach this critical position where white can't stop that pawn queening. But Anand had seen much deeper than this. He accepts that black's going to queen the pawn and just plays knight e3. After the check, he takes the rook. Check king a2, but how is white's e-pawn stopped from advancing further? Morozevich in time trouble. He plays queen e4, but I don't think there's any good defence here. And Anand played a beautiful move. Can you see it? I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Anand played rook e5. Lovely. If queen takes e5, knight g4 check, winning the queen. Here Morozevich resigned. Let's have a look in conclusion and summary for this game to look at the main positional themes again. So out of the opening it looked to be the English attack system, very popular system. But Anand's use of it was really to dislodge that knight on f6 from that key d5 square. He didn't really pursue the attack apart from just defending that pawn. And Morozevich did play nicely as well in many respects. He bravely played f5, gaining quite a bit of counterplay later, on the f pawn at least. Remember, this isolated h pawn as well. So white did have structural problems to deal with here. And then tried to do the best he could defending those, but at the same time balancing his queenside attack. So he's got these two liabilities here, but in order to win material on that queenside, he has to start letting them go, like the h pawn, and now later the f pawn. But he secured that lovely knight manoeuvre to d5, and then in this final phase we see that dangerous h pawn being balanced by white's dangerous e pawn, and this quite lovely combination at the end where Anand had seen further than Morozevich to allow this pawn queening because of that final finishing move, rook e5. So another fantastic game by Anand, who is the new chess world champion. Excellently played.